Elijah Callahan dropped to his knees in the snow. His hands trembled as he lifted the frozen child from the platform. A piece of paper was pinned to her chest. 2 words: "No one's child." His throat closed. His heart cracked wide open. She couldn't be more than 7 years old. Her lips were blue. Her breath was barely there. And someone had thrown her away like garbage. Not today. Not on his watch. He pulled her close against his chest and ran. If you want to see how one broken man and one abandoned girl changed each other's lives forever, subscribe to my channel and stay until the end. Drop a comment telling me which city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. The wind cut through Devil's Ridge like a blade seeking bone. February 1866, Montana Territory. Elijah Callahan pressed his back against the frozen rock face. Blood dripped from a gash above his left eye, but he didn't wipe it away. His focus remained locked on the trail below. Samuel Garrett stumbled through the snow. The outlaw was wounded, desperate, and dangerous. Behind him lay 17 graves. Men, women, children. All victims of the Garrett gang's bloody rampage across 3 territories. Elijah checked his Colt. 1 bullet left. It would be enough. He moved from cover silent as a shadow despite his injuries. The wind masked his footsteps. 20 yards. 15. 10. Garrett stopped suddenly. Something primal in him sensed the danger. He turned. "The hawk?" Garrett breathed recognition and fear flooding his face. Elijah raised his revolver. "For the 17 souls you sent to early graves." Garrett's hand flew to his holster. Fast, too fast for a dying man. 2 shots thundered across the ridge. Elijah felt fire graze his temple, but his own bullet found its mark. Garrett staggered backward, clutching his chest. His boots caught on the cliff's edge. For one eternal moment, he hung suspended between life and death. "My brother will find you." Garrett gasped, blood bubbling between his lips. "Daniel will make you pay. He'll take everything you love. Your brother should have thought about that before you started killing innocents." Garrett fell backward into the darkness below. Elijah holstered his weapon. He pressed a hand to his bleeding temple. The bounty on Samuel Garrett would be his last. 16 years of hunting men was enough for any soul to bear. He turned to leave. His legs buckled. The world tilted sideways as he collapsed into the snow, his blood staining the white powder crimson. The last thing he saw before darkness claimed him was a lantern bobbing through the blizzard. A woman's voice calling for help. Elijah woke 3 days later in a small cabin. A young woman with chestnut hair was changing the bandage on his head. Her hands were gentle, practiced. "You're awake." She smiled. "I'm Anna. Anna Whitmore. My father and I found you bleeding out in the snow." "How long?" "3 days. The whole territory's talking about you." She set aside the bloody bandage. "The hawk. The man who ended the Garrett gang." Elijah said nothing. "You can stay until you're healed." Anna continued. "After that, well, most folks around here would be grateful to have you." He hadn't planned on staying. Bounty hunters didn't put down roots. But something about Anna's gentle touch. The quiet peace of Silver Creek. It spoke to a part of him long forgotten. Perhaps it was time for the hawk to rest his wings. 16 years later. Elijah Callahan stood at the window of his ranch house, watching snow blanket the Montana landscape. He was a different man now. A widower of 4 years. His dark hair had turned silver at the temples. His face was weathered by sun and sorrow. The man known as the Hawk existed only in whispers and tall tales told in saloons. He rubbed the old scar at his temple. A habit formed whenever memories threatened to surface. Anna. His Anna. Gone 4 years now to typhoid fever. The grandfather clock struck 5. Time to head to the depot. The horse feed he'd ordered from Helena would be arriving on the morning train. Elijah pulled on his heavy coat and gloves. He cast one final glance at the charred marriage certificate framed above the mantel, the only item he'd managed to save when lightning struck the barn last spring. The edges were blackened, but the names were still legible. Elijah and Anna Callahan. Married June 12, 1867. "I'll be back before noon," he told the empty house. A ritual he'd maintained since her death, as if Anna might still be listening from somewhere beyond. The Silver Creek Depot was quiet at this early hour. January 1882. The coldest winter in 20 years, folks were saying. Elijah's breath formed thick clouds in the lamplight as he stamped his feet to keep blood flowing. "Morning, Callahan." Hank Miller, the depot manager, nodded as Elijah approached. "Cold enough to freeze the tail off a mule." "That it is." The train arrived with a screech of iron against frozen rails. Steam rose like ghostly fingers into the dark sky. Elijah waited as Hank directed the unloading of his feed sacks. He moved to help. Better to keep moving in this cold. Then he heard it. Faint. Easy to miss amid the train's mechanical groans. A cough. Weak. Coming from one of the freight cars. Elijah paused. "You hear that?" Hank shrugged. "Probably just the wind." But Elijah was already moving toward the sound. Something pulled him forward. An instinct he couldn't explain. The freight car door was iced over. He used his full strength to slide it open. Inside, tucked against a pile of burlap sacks, lay a small figure. A child. A girl no more than 7 years old. Her lips were blue. Her chestnut hair was matted with ice. Her thin coat offered nothing against Montana's brutal winter. Pinned to her chest was a scrap of paper. 3 words, scrawled in charcoal. "No one's child." Something cracked inside Elijah's chest. Something he'd kept locked away for 4 years. He reached out, touched her cheek. Cold. Too cold. "Hank, get over here." The depot manager peered into the car. His face went pale. "Good Lord, is she—" "Not yet." Elijah was already removing his coat, wrapping it around the child. "But she will be if we don't get her to Doc Porter. Now." Hank shook his head. "This ain't your business, Callahan. County officials should handle it. Orphan's got a process. She'll be dead before your process starts." Elijah lifted the girl. She weighed almost nothing. "My feed can wait." He carried her through the town square, toward the doctor's house. Clara Whitmore stood on her boarding house porch, arms folded against the cold. Anna's older sister, the woman who'd helped nurse him back to health 16 years ago. "What in heaven's name?" Clara stepped forward. "Elijah, is that a child? Found her in the freight car. Frozen half to death." Clara fell into step beside him, her face tight with concern. "Let me help. Get Doc Porter. Tell him hypothermia and likely pneumonia." Clara ran ahead, her skirts flying. The girl stirred against Elijah's chest. Her eyes fluttered open. Gray eyes. Pale as winter sky. Anna's eyes. The recognition hit him like a physical blow. "Where's Mama?" the girl whispered. "Don't know, child, but you're safe now." Her small fingers clutched his coat. "Promise?" Elijah's throat tightened. He hadn't made a promise to anyone in 4 years. Promise. Doc James Porter met them at the door. He took one look and stepped aside. "Bring her in, kitchen table, near the stove." The kitchen smelled of carbolic acid and coffee. Elijah laid the child on the table, and Porter moved quickly, peeling back her coat, pressing fingers to her throat. "She's been out there hours," Porter said grimly. "Maybe all night. Temperature's dangerously low." "Will she live?" "Too early to say." Porter mixed laudanum with honey in a tin cup. "She needs medicine, warm broth, and constant watching. Could be days before we know." Clara arrived breathless. She moved immediately to help gathering blankets, stoking the fire. Elijah stood back watching the child's shallow breathing. The note was still pinned to her dress. No one's child. He reached down and tore it away, crumpled it in his fist. She's somebody's child, he said quietly. Somebody threw her away, but she's still somebody. Clara looked up at him. Something flickered in her eyes. Recognition, maybe, or memory. Elijah. What? Look at her face. Really look. He did. The chestnut hair, the gray eyes, the small birthmark behind her left ear shaped like a star. His blood went cold. Anna had that same birthmark, in the exact same place. That's not possible, he breathed. Anna's sister, Clara said quietly. Lillian. She married a miner named Thomas Bennett about 8 years back, moved to Denver. Anna wrote to her for years, but the letters stopped coming about 2 years ago. You're saying this child is Anna's niece, your niece by marriage. Clara's voice cracked. Lillian must have sent her here. To you. Elijah looked at the girl again, at the face that carried echoes of his dead wife, at the small body fighting for each breath. Why? Why would she send her child alone in winter? I don't know. Clara wiped her eyes. But Lillian wouldn't have done it unless she had no other choice. Porter looked up from his work. She's stabilizing. The laudanum's helping, but she'll need watching through the night. I'll stay, Elijah said. Both Clara and Porter stared at him. Elijah, Clara began. You don't have to. She's family. The words came out rough, unused. She's Anna's blood. I'll stay. The girl woke near midnight. Elijah sat in a chair beside the table watching the fire burn low. He'd sent Clara home hours ago. Porter was sleeping in the next room, ready if needed. Where am I? Her voice was small, frightened. You're safe, Elijah said. In Silver Creek, Montana, Doc Porter's house. The girl tried to sit up, winced, and lay back down. Is this where Mama sent me? Your mama sent you here? She nodded. She said there was family here, people who would want me. Her gray eyes filled with tears. But the note said no one's child. The lady at the train put it on me. Said it would help me find a home faster. Rage flared in Elijah's chest, white-hot and sudden. Some stranger had pinned that cruel label on a dying child, had called her no one's. What's your name? He asked, keeping his voice gentle. Grace. Grace Bennett. Grace. He leaned forward. My name is Elijah Callahan. I was married to your Aunt Anna. Grace's eyes widened. Aunt Anna Mama talked about her. Said she was the prettiest lady in the whole world. Said she married a man who used to catch bad people. That was a long time ago. Is Aunt Anna here? The question cut deeper than any bullet ever had. No, Grace. She died. 4 years back. Grace's face crumpled. Like Mama? Elijah went still. Your mama's dead. She got sick, coughing blood. The doctors couldn't help. Tears spilled down Grace's cheeks. She told me I had to be brave, had to find Uncle Elijah in Montana, said he would keep me safe. Elijah closed his eyes. Lillian was gone. Anna's little sister. The one she'd worried about, constantly written to monthly, sent money to when times were hard. Gone. And she'd sent her daughter here. To him. The last person who should be trusted with a child. Grace. She looked at him, tears still streaming. Your mama was right. You're safe now. I'll keep you safe. Promise. That word again. The one he'd avoided for 4 years. Promise. Grace reached out her small hand. He took it. Her fingers were still cold but warming. She began to hum. The melody was soft, broken by coughs, but unmistakable. Elijah's heart stopped. It was Anna's lullaby, the one she'd made up herself, the one she sang while kneading bread or mending clothes by the fire, the one she'd hummed on her deathbed, delirious with fever. No one else knew that song. Anna had composed it herself, had never written it down. "Where did you learn that?" His voice came out strangled. "Mama taught me." Grace's eyes were drooping, the laudanum pulling her back toward sleep. She said her big sister made it up. Said if I ever got lost I should sing it, and someone who loved me would find me. She was asleep before Elijah could respond. He sat there holding her hand, listening to the fire crackle. Anna's song. Anna's eyes. Anna's blood. He'd sworn off family after Anna died. Sworn off love, connection, hope. He'd planned to live out his days alone, tending his horses, waiting for death to reunite him with his wife. But Anna had sent him one last gift. Through her sister. Through this child. A second chance he'd never asked for and didn't deserve. "All right, Anna," he whispered to the empty room. "I hear you." By morning, Grace's fever had broken. Doc Porter pronounced himself cautiously optimistic. Keep her warm, keep her fed, keep her resting. She's young, strong, she'll pull through. Elijah made a decision. "She's coming home with me." Porter raised an eyebrow. "You sure about that?" "You've been alone a long while, Elijah. A child needs more than a roof and 3 meals. She's family. The county might have something to say about that. There are procedures for orphans." "Then the county can say it to my face." Clara arrived as Elijah was preparing to leave. She carried a basket of supplies and a determined expression. "I'm coming with you. She'll need a woman's care while she recovers." "Clara, don't argue with me, Elijah Callahan. I've known you since you were half dead in my father's cabin. I'm not letting you bungle this." Despite everything, Elijah felt his mouth twitch. Almost a smile. "Fine." He carried Grace to his wagon, wrapped in every blanket Clara could find. The girl was awake now, watching everything with wide gray eyes. "Is this your wagon?" she asked. "It is." "Mama said you had horses, beautiful horses." "That I do." Grace's face lit up. The first real smile he'd seen from her. "Can I see them?" "Once you're stronger." As they drove through town, Elijah noticed people watching, faces in windows, whispers on porches, the reclusive widower, taking in a strange child. There would be talk. Let them talk. He'd weathered worse. The ranch sat 5 miles from town. A modest spread nestled against pine-covered hills. The house was small but sturdy. Elijah had built it himself when he and Anna first married. Since her death, the place had taken on a neglected air. Curtains stayed closed. Dust gathered on shelves. The rocking chair on the porch collected snow instead of evening conversations. Clara took one look and shook her head. "This won't do. Not for a child. It's shelter. It's warm." "It's a tomb, Elijah." Her voice softened. Anna would weep to see it. He had no answer for that. They settled Grace in the spare room. Clara worked efficiently, airing musty quilts, building up the fire, preparing broth in the kitchen. Elijah found himself standing in the doorway watching the child sleep. No one's child. The words burned in his memory. "That's not true," he said quietly. "You're somebody. You're Anna's. And now you're mine." 3 days passed. Grace grew stronger with each one. She ate everything Clara put in front of her. She asked questions constantly. She followed Elijah with her eyes whenever he moved through the house. On the 4th day, she was strong enough to sit up in bed. "Uncle Elijah." He paused in the doorway. The title still felt strange. Foreign. "Yes. What happened to your face?" She pointed to the scar at his temple. "Did a bad man do that?" "A long time ago." "Were you catching him like Mama said?" Elijah hesitated. The hawk felt like another lifetime, another person entirely. "Yes." "Did you get him?" "I did." Grace nodded solemnly. "Good. Bad men should be caught." That afternoon, Clara announced she needed to return to town. "I've got a business to run. Can't stay forever." She fixed Elijah with a stern look. But I'll be back. Every day until she's fully recovered. I appreciate everything you've done." Clara paused at the door. Something complicated crossed her face. "She looks like her, you know. Anna. The way she tilts her head when she's thinking. The way she hums." "I know." "Don't let that ghost haunt you, Elijah. She's not Anna. She's Grace, a child who needs you to see her for who she is." "I know that too." Clara studied him for a long moment. Then she nodded and left. That evening, Elijah sat with Grace by the fire. She was wrapped in one of Anna's old quilts, the one with the mountain pattern that Anna had sewn during their first winter together. "Uncle Elijah." "Are you sad?" The question caught him off guard. "What makes you ask that?" "Your eyes." Grace looked at him steadily. "They're sad. Like Mama's were at the end. Like she was thinking about things she missed." Elijah stared into the fire. "I lost someone I loved very much. Your Aunt Anna." "Is that why the house feels empty, because she's not here anymore?" "Out of the mouths of children." "Yes." Grace was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Mama told me something before she put me on the train. She said when someone we love dies, they don't really leave. They just move to a place we can't see. But they're still watching, still loving us." Elijah's throat tightened. "Your mama was a wise woman. She also said that people who are really gone are the ones who stop being loved. As long as someone remembers them, they're still here." Grace hugged the quilt tighter. "So Aunt Anna's not really gone, because you still remember her." For the first time in 4 years, Elijah felt tears burn his eyes. He didn't let them fall, but they were there. "No," he said roughly. "She's not really gone." Grace reached out and took his hand. Her fingers were warm now, strong. "Then she knows I'm here. She knows you found me." "I reckon she does." They sat in silence as the fire crackled and the wind howled outside. For the first time since Anna died, the house didn't feel quite so empty. A week later, trouble arrived. Elijah was in the barn checking on the horses when he heard riders approaching. He stepped outside, hand resting near his hip out of old habit. 3 men on horseback, well-dressed, official-looking. The lead rider dismounted. He was lean, sharp-featured, with the kind of smile that never reached his eyes. "Mr. Callahan, I'm Marcus Cole, County Land Registrar." Elijah didn't move. "What brings you out here, Mr. Cole?" "Official business, I'm afraid." Cole's smile widened. "Word reached my office that you've taken in an orphan child. A girl found at the depot with no documentation, no family connection. She's my wife's niece. Family." "So you claim." Cole produced a folded paper from his coat. "But according to Territorial Law Section 412, family continuity requires documentation. Birth records, marriage certificates, proof of blood relation. She's 7 years old. She was dying when I found her. Nevertheless, the law is clear. Without proper documentation, the child must be remanded to county custody pending investigation." Cole's eyes gleamed. "Unless, of course, you can provide proof of your claim within 60 days. Elijah felt cold spreading through his gut. Not from the winter air. Something was wrong here. Something beyond bureaucratic procedure. 60 days. Standard timeline. I'm sure you understand." Cole mounted his horse. "I'll be back with my assessment team. Good day, Mr. Callahan." As the riders departed, Elijah watched them go. Marcus Cole. The name meant nothing to him, but the feeling in his gut did. The same feeling he'd had countless times as the hawk. The feeling that told him when a hunt was about to turn dangerous. He walked back to the house where Grace was watching from the window. Who were those men, Uncle Elijah? Nobody important. They looked important. The one in front smiled like he had a secret. Elijah paused. What kind of secret? A bad one. Grace's gray eyes were solemn. Mama used to say you could tell a lot about a person by how they smile. That man's smile didn't reach his eyes. Smart child. Too smart for her own good. Don't worry about him, Grace. I'll handle it. But as he watched the riders disappear over the ridge, Elijah knew this was only the beginning. Someone wanted Grace gone from his life, and the hawk in him needed to know why. That night, Elijah couldn't sleep. He sat by the window, watching the darkness beyond his mind, turning over Marcus Cole's visit, like a stone hiding something venomous underneath. 60 days. Documentation. County custody. None of it made sense. Orphans came through Montana territory all the time. Folks took them in without paperwork, without officials riding out to make threats. That was how the West worked. You found a child in need, you helped. Simple as that. So why was Marcus Cole so interested in one little girl, Uncle Elijah? He turned. Grace stood in the doorway, the quilt wrapped around her shoulders, her gray eyes wide in the lamplight. You should be sleeping. I heard you walking, back and forth. She patted closer. Are you worried about those men? Come here. She climbed into the chair beside him, tucking her feet under the quilt. For a moment they sat in silence. Grace, I need you to tell me everything about the train. Everything you remember. I already told you. Mama put me on it. Said there was family in Montana. Before that, before your mama got sick, did anyone come to your house? Anyone asking questions? Grace's brow furrowed. There was a man. He came to see Mama a few times. She didn't like him. I could tell because she always locked the door after he left and checked the windows. Elijah leaned forward. What did he look like? Tall, thin. Grace thought hard. He had a smile that made me feel cold inside, like today. The words hit Elijah like a fist to the chest. The same man, you're sure? I don't know. Maybe. Grace pulled the quilt tighter. Uncle Elijah, why would someone want to hurt Mama? She never did anything bad to anyone. I don't know yet, Grace, but I'm going to find out. He walked her back to bed, tucked the covers around her small frame, and stood watching until her breathing deepened into sleep. Then he went to the trunk in his bedroom, the one he hadn't opened in 16 years. Inside, beneath old clothes and memories he'd tried to bury, lay his gun belt. The leather was cracked from disuse. The holster was empty. But beneath it, wrapped in oilcloth, were the twin Colts he'd carried as the hawk, each one engraved with a hawk in flight on the grip. Elijah lifted one revolver, checked the cylinder. Still loaded. The weight was familiar. Dangerous. He'd sworn to Anna he'd never touch these weapons again. Had promised her the hawk was dead and buried. But someone was threatening his family, and the hawk had never let a threat go unanswered. Clara arrived the next morning with news. I've been asking around town, she said, keeping her voice low while Grace ate breakfast in the kitchen. Marcus Cole showed up about 8 months ago. Came from somewhere back east. Cheyenne, maybe. Helena, nobody knows for certain. What else? He's been buying up land, or rather the railroad's been buying it through him. Clara's mouth tightened. 6 homesteads in the past year. All of them belonged to widows or widowers without children. All of them seized under that same law he mentioned to you. Section 412. Family continuity provision. If you can't prove blood relation or legal adoption, the county can declare your homestead abandoned and sell it at auction. Clara leaned closer. Elijah, every single property Cole has seized has ended up with the Montana Pacific Railroad within a month, at 10 times what the county paid for it. Elijah's jaw tightened. He's running a scheme, using the law to steal land. That's what it looks like. But there's more. Clara hesitated. I talked to the telegraph operator. Harold owes me a favor. He said Cole's been sending messages to someone in Cheyenne almost every day since he arrived. Always the same recipient. Who? Someone with the initials DG. DG. The letters meant nothing to Elijah, but the cold feeling in his gut intensified. There's something else, Clara said quietly. Something I should have told you when Grace first arrived. Tell me now. Lillian wrote to me, about 6 months before she died. Clara's eyes glistened. She was frightened, Elijah. She said someone was watching her, following her. She said if anything happened to her, I should make sure Grace got to you, that you were the only one who could protect her. Why didn't you tell me this before? Because I didn't know if Grace would make it here. I didn't know if Lillian was just being paranoid from her illness. Clara's voice cracked. But now with Cole showing up asking about her specifically. Elijah, this isn't coincidence. No, it's not. He stood moving to the window watching the road that led to town. Someone wanted Lillian dead. Someone wants Grace gone. And I need to know why. That afternoon, Elijah rode into Silver Creek alone. He'd left Grace with Clara, both of them under strict instructions to lock the doors and speak to no one. The ride into town gave him time to think, to plan, to let the hawk's instincts surface after 16 years of dormancy. Someone was hunting his family. Time to find out who. Sheriff Henry Dawson was in his office, feet propped on the desk, when Elijah walked in. Dawson looked up. His weathered face registered surprise, then something deeper. Recognition. Well, well, Elijah Callahan. Been a while since you came to town voluntarily. I need information, Henry. About Marcus Cole, I reckon. Dawson swung his feet down. Clara's been asking questions all over town. Figured you'd show up eventually. What do you know? Dawson studied him for a long moment. Then he reached into his desk drawer and pulled out a bottle of whiskey and 2 glasses. Sit down, Elijah. This is going to take a while. Elijah sat. Dawson poured 2 measures and pushed one across the desk. You remember back in '66, the Garrett gang? I remember. You killed Samuel Garrett, the leader. Put an end to their rampage across 3 territories. Dawson took a slow sip. But Samuel had a younger brother, Daniel. He was just a kid back then, 15, maybe 16. Ran with the gang, but never got his hands dirty enough for a bounty. Elijah felt the cold spreading through him. Daniel Garrett. DG. Dawson nodded. I did some digging after Clara started asking questions. Marcus Cole doesn't exist before 1874. No birth records, no family history, nothing. It's like he appeared out of thin air. He leaned forward. But Daniel Garrett disappeared from the territory in 1867, 1 year after you killed his brother. You're saying Cole is Daniel Garrett? I'm saying it's mighty suspicious. Dawson's eyes were hard. A man with no past shows up in your territory. Starts seizing land from folks without families. Then a child connected to you appears, and suddenly he's very interested in making sure she doesn't stay. Elijah's mind raced. The pieces were falling into place. Terrible pieces forming a terrible picture. He's been planning this for years. Looks that way. But why now? Why wait 16 years? Dawson was quiet for a moment. Then he said, Your wife, Anna. She died 4 years ago. What does that have to do with anything? Think about it, Elijah. While Anna was alive, you had family. You had roots. Taking your land would have been complicated. Dawson's voice softened. But a widower with no children. No heirs. Under Section 412, you're vulnerable. Your land could be seized the same way he's taken all the others. The realization hit Elijah like a physical blow. He was waiting for me to be alone. And then Grace showed up, Lillian's daughter, Anna's niece. Dawson nodded slowly. She complicates things for him. If she's legally recognized as your family, you're protected. But if he can prove she's not your blood, not your legal ward, he takes everything. Your land, your horses, everything you and Anna built. Dawson leaned back. And if I had to guess, he gets revenge for his brother in the process. Leaves you with nothing. The way you left him with nothing when you killed Samuel." Elijah stood abruptly. His chair scraped against the floor. "Where is he now?" "Elijah." Dawson's voice carried a warning. "Don't do anything stupid." "Where?" "His office. County building. But listen to me." Dawson rose, blocking the door. "If you go after him now, guns blazing, you're playing right into his hands. He wants you to become the hawk again. Wants you to give him an excuse to act legally against you. He killed Lillian. I know it. You don't know anything yet. You suspect." Dawson's eyes held his. "You need proof, Elijah. Real proof. Something that will hold up in front of a judge, otherwise he wins." Elijah stood there, fists clenched, every instinct screaming to find Cole and end this now. But Dawson was right. The hawk had been a hunter, a killer. But he'd also been patient, strategic. He'd never let rage cloud his judgment. "How do I get proof?" Dawson reached into another drawer, pulled out a leather-bound ledger. "I've been keeping records. Every land seizure Cole's been involved in. Every property that ended up with the railroad. Every family he's destroyed." He handed the ledger to Elijah. "It's not enough to convict him, not yet. But it's a start." Elijah took the ledger. "What else do I need? Witnesses, documents, someone willing to testify that Cole forged signatures, fabricated evidence." Dawson paused. "And you need to establish Grace as your legal family, publicly, undeniably, so he can't use Section 412 against you." "How?" "The old way. The way folks have been proving family for generations out here." Dawson's mouth curved into something almost like a smile. "A branding ceremony. Public participation in family trade. Witnessed by the whole town." "She's 7 years old. Old enough to hold an iron. Old enough to make a mark." Dawson met his eyes. "It's legal, Elijah. Territorial law recognizes it. And if half the town watches her brand your horses with your family, mark, no judge in Montana can say she's not your kin." Elijah looked down at the ledger in his hands, then at the badge on Dawson's chest. "You're taking a risk, helping me like this. You saved my life once, back in '67, when Samuel's men had me pinned down outside Helena." Dawson's voice was quiet. "I haven't forgotten. And I'm not about to let his brother destroy a good man and an innocent child." Elijah nodded once. "Thank you, Henry. Don't thank me yet. We've got a long fight ahead." Elijah returned to the ranch as darkness fell. Clara met him at the door, her face tight with worry. "What did you find out?" "Where's Grace?" "Sleeping. She wore herself out helping me clean." Clara stepped closer. "Elijah, what's going on?" He told her everything. Cole's true identity. The revenge plot 16 years in the making. The danger Grace was in simply by existing. Clara listened in silence. When he finished, her face was pale but determined. "What do we do?" "We fight. But smart." Elijah set Dawson's ledger on the table. "I need to find more evidence. Proof that Cole forged documents that he's been stealing land. And I need to establish Grace's family before his 60-day deadline. The branding ceremony. Dawson's idea. It's legal, binding. If Grace participates publicly, Cole can't challenge her status." Clara nodded slowly. "I can help. There are people in town who remember what you did for this territory. The families you saved when the Garrett gang was terrorizing everyone, they'll stand with you. Some will, others are afraid of Cole. Then we give them something to be more afraid of." Clara's eyes flashed. "We show them the hawk is back." "I'm not that man anymore, Clara." "Maybe not, but Cole doesn't know that." She reached out, touching his arm. "Use it, Elijah. Use the fear he has of who you were. It might be the only advantage you have." That night, Elijah sat by Grace's bed watching her sleep. She looked so small, so fragile, A child who'd already lost everything and was about to be caught in a war she didn't understand. "I won't let him take you," Elijah whispered. "I don't care what it costs. You're family now, and family protects its own." Grace stirred. Her eyes fluttered open. "Uncle Elijah." "Go back to sleep, Grace." "Were you watching me?" "Just making sure you're safe." She reached out her small hand, finding his. "I had a dream about Mama. She said you would keep me safe. She said you were a good man even if you didn't believe it yourself." Elijah's throat tightened. "Your mama had a lot of faith in me." She was right. Grace's eyes were already closing again. "You found me. You kept your promise." Within moments, she was asleep again. Elijah sat there until dawn, holding her hand, listening to her breathe. The next few weeks passed in tense preparation. Elijah worked with Grace every day, teaching her to hold the branding iron, to press it steady and true. She was small but determined. Her hands grew stronger with each session. "Like this?" she asked, mimicking the motion for the 100th time. "Steadier. Count to 3 in your head. Then lift." She tried again. Better this time. "Good. You're learning fast." Grace beamed at the praise. "Mama always said I was stubborn. She said I got it from Aunt Anna." She wasn't wrong. Clara came every day bringing supplies and news from town. Some of it was encouraging. Families remembered what the hawk had done for them. They were willing to stand as witnesses, to testify on Elijah's behalf. But other news was darker. "Cole's been busy," Clara reported one afternoon. "He's filed papers with the territorial judge, claims you're unfit to care for Grace, says you've threatened him, that you're unstable." Lies. Of course they're lies, but he's got witnesses, people he's paid or threatened. Clara's mouth twisted. He's also requested the judge expedite the review, wants it done before the 60 days are up. Can he do that? If the judge agrees. And Judge Harrison is due in Silver Creek next month. Clara paused. "Elijah, we need to move faster. The branding ceremony can't wait." "Grace isn't ready. She'll have to be." That night, Elijah found Grace in the barn practicing alone. She held the cold iron in both hands, pressing it against a wooden post, counting under her breath. Her face was set with concentration. 1, 2, 3. She lifted the iron, examined her imaginary brand. "Not bad," Elijah said from the doorway. Grace jumped. "I didn't hear you." "That's because I didn't want you to." He walked closer. "You're practicing without me. I want to be ready." Grace looked up at him, her gray eyes serious. "Miss Clara told me about the bad man, about how he wants to take me away." Elijah silently cursed Clara's loose tongue. "You shouldn't worry about that." "I'm not worried." Grace lifted her chin. "I'm angry. He doesn't get to decide if I'm family or not. You decide, I decide." She gripped the iron tighter. "This is how we prove it right. With the brand." "That's right. Then I'll be ready, I promise." Elijah looked at this child who'd been thrown away by the world, who'd survived abandonment and illness and grief, who was standing here now ready to fight for her place in a family she'd only known for weeks. "You're already family, Grace. The ceremony is just for the law." "I know." She smiled, small but real. "But I want everyone else to know it too." The night before the scheduled ceremony, everything fell apart. Elijah was checking the horses when he heard the sound. Hoofbeats, multiple riders, coming fast. He grabbed his rifle and moved to the barn door. 6 men on horseback, armed, spreading out to surround the property. "Grace!" he shouted. "Clara! Get inside now!" He heard the front door slam. Heard Clara's voice calling instructions. The lead rider dismounted. Even in the darkness, Elijah recognized him. Marcus Cole. "Evening, Callahan," Cole's voice carried across the yard. "Hope we're not interrupting anything." You're on my property, Cole. Uninvited. County business. Cole held up a paper. I've got a warrant. Judge Harrison signed it this afternoon. Seems there's been some concerns about the child in your care. We're here to conduct a welfare inspection. At night with 6 armed men. Can't be too careful. You've got quite a reputation after all. Cole's smile was a slash of white in the darkness. The Hawk. That's what they used to call you, isn't it? Elijah felt his blood turn to ice. That was a long time ago. Was it? Cole stepped closer. My sources tell me you killed a lot of men in your time. Bad men, supposedly. But who decides who's bad and who's not? His voice hardened. My brother was 15 years old when you put a bullet in him. Your brother rode with murderers. He made his choice. He was a child, following the only family he had. Cole's composure cracked, just for a moment. Then the mask slid back into place. But that's all in the past. I'm a law-abiding citizen now, a county official, and I'm here to ensure the welfare of an orphan child. She's not an orphan. She's my family. Prove it. I will. Tomorrow. At the branding ceremony. In front of the whole town. Cole laughed. A cold, hollow sound. There won't be any ceremony, Callahan. Judge Harrison has suspended all family continuity claims pending his review. You try to brand that child tomorrow, you'll be arrested for defying a court order. The words hit Elijah like a physical blow. That's not possible. Dawson said. Dawson isn't the only one with friends in this territory. Cole remounted his horse. 60 days. You've got 60 days to produce legal documentation proving blood relation, birth certificates, marriage records, official papers. He smiled that cold smile. And something tells me you don't have any of that. He turned his horse toward the road. One more thing, Callahan. The girl. Grace. Cole looked back over his shoulder. She's got her mother's eyes. Lillian used to look at me the same way, right before she started coughing blood. Elijah's vision went red. He raised his rifle. Uncle Elijah, no! Grace's voice cut through the rage. She was standing on the porch, Clara holding her back. Please, Grace called. Please don't. Cole laughed again. Better listen to your family hawk, while you still have one. He spurred his horse and rode away, his men following. Elijah stood there, rifle raised, watching them disappear into the darkness. His hands were shaking, not from cold, from rage. Clara approached slowly. Elijah, put the rifle down. He lowered it, turned to face them. Grace's face was streaked with tears. He killed Mama, didn't he? That man. He hurt her. Elijah couldn't lie. Not to her. I think so. Grace's small hands clenched into fists. Then we have to stop him. We have to make him pay for what he did. We will. How? Clara demanded. He's blocked the ceremony. He's got the judge in his pocket. What can we do? Elijah looked at Grace. At the fire burning in her gray eyes. Anna's eyes. He thinks he's won, Elijah said slowly. He thinks we're beaten. Aren't we? No. Elijah walked to the porch, crouched down to Grace's level. He made a mistake tonight. He told us who he really is, what he really wants. Revenge, Grace whispered. For his brother. That's right, and revenge makes men sloppy, careless. Elijah stood. He's been planning this for 16 years, but he's not the only one who knows how to plan. What are you going to do? Clara asked. Elijah looked out at the darkness where Cole had disappeared. I'm going to find proof. Real proof. Something that will destroy him in front of the whole territory. His voice hardened. And then I'm going to show him what happens when you threaten a man's family. Clara and Grace exchanged glances. We're coming with you, Grace said firmly. No, it's too dangerous. You promised, Grace's voice cracked. You promised you wouldn't leave me. Elijah stopped, looked at her. This small, fierce child who'd already lost everything, who was standing here now demanding to fight alongside him. "I'm not leaving you, Grace. I'm protecting you." "Then protect me by letting me help." She lifted her chin. "Mama said family sticks together, no matter what." Clara put her hand on Grace's shoulder. "She's right, Elijah. Whatever you're planning, we're part of it. All of us." Elijah looked at them, the sister of the woman he'd loved, the niece who'd become his daughter in everything but law, his family. "All right," he said finally. "Together." Grace threw her arms around him. He held her tight, feeling her small heart beating against his chest. Somewhere out there, Daniel Garrett thought he'd won. He was wrong. The hawk was awake, and this time he had something worth fighting for. The next 3 days, Elijah barely slept. He rode to every homestead Cole had seized, knocked on doors, asked questions. Most folks were too scared to talk. They'd seen what happened to those who crossed the county registrar, but a few remembered. A few were angry enough to share what they knew. Thomas Hartwell was the first to speak openly. "He came to my neighbor's place last spring," Hartwell said, standing in his barn doorway. "Old widow named Martha Jennings. Lived alone since her husband died in '79. Cole showed up with papers. Said she hadn't filed proper documentation. Said her land was forfeit." What happened? She fought him, showed him her marriage certificate, her husband's military records, everything proper and legal. Hartwell's face darkened. Week later, her cabin burned down, all her documents with it. Cole came back the next day with new papers, said without proof she had no claim. Where is she now? County poorhouse. Lost everything. Elijah felt the familiar cold rage building. "Would you testify to this in front of a judge?" Hartwell hesitated. Then he looked toward his house where his wife stood watching from the window with their 3 children. "Cole threatened my family, Callahan. Said if I talked, my place would be next. I can protect you." "Can you?" Hartwell shook his head. "You're one man against the whole county system. Cole's got the judge. He's got hired guns. He's got the railroad's money behind him. I've got the truth. Truth don't stop bullets." Elijah stepped closer. 16 years ago, your father was pinned down outside Helena. The Garrett gang had him surrounded. Would have killed him if I hadn't shown up." Hartwell went still. "You remember that?" "I remember every life I saved, and every one I took." Elijah met his eyes. "Your father told me something before he died. He said his son was a good man, an honest man, the kind who'd stand up when it mattered." Hartwell was silent for a long moment. Then he straightened. "What do you need me to do?" By the end of the week, Elijah had gathered 5 witnesses. 5 families willing to testify against Cole. 5 stories of forged documents, burned homes, stolen land. But it still wasn't enough. "We need the documents themselves," Dawson said when Elijah brought him the testimonies. "Physical evidence of forgery. Without that, it's just their word against his." Where would he keep them? His office, county building. Dawson frowned. "But it's locked tighter than a bank vault. He's got men watching it day and night." Then we find another way in. Clara arrived at the ranch that evening with unexpected news. "I've been talking to Sarah Miller. She works as a cleaning woman at the county building. And she's seen Cole's private ledger. He keeps it in a safe behind his desk. She doesn't know what's in it, but she's seen him adding entries every time he seizes a new property." Elijah leaned forward. "Can she get us access?" "She's terrified of Cole, but her husband was one of the men whose land was stolen." Clara's eyes hardened. "I think she might be willing to help. For a price." "What price?" "She wants her family's land back, once Cole is exposed." Done. The plan took shape over the following days. Sarah Miller would leave a window unlocked on the ground floor. Elijah would slip in after midnight, find the safe, and retrieve whatever evidence was inside. Simple, clean, dangerous. The night before the operation, Grace found Elijah in the barn checking his weapons. "You're going to do something dangerous," she said, not a question. "I'm going to get proof, evidence that will stop Cole." "Let me come with you." "Absolutely not." "But, Grace." Elijah set down his revolver and crouched to her level. "This is something I have to do alone. If anything happened to you, I'd never forgive myself." "What if something happens to you?" Her voice trembled. "What if you don't come back?" "I'll come back. You can't promise that." "I can. I will." He took her small hands in his. "I promise to keep you safe. I promise to be your family. I don't break my promises." Grace threw her arms around him. "I'm scared, Uncle Elijah." "I know, little one, I know." He held her tight. "But sometimes being brave means being scared and doing the right thing anyway." "That's what Mama used to say." "Your mama was a wise woman." That night, Elijah left the ranch at midnight. The ride to town was quiet. Too quiet. His instincts screamed that something was wrong, but he pushed forward. He'd come too far to turn back now. The county building was dark when he arrived. He tied his horse in the alley and moved to the window Sarah had promised to leave unlocked. It was open, just as she'd said. Elijah slipped inside his boots, silent on the wooden floor. The building smelled of dust and old paper. He moved through the darkness, counting doors until he found Cole's office. The door was locked, but locks had never stopped the hawk. Within seconds, he was inside. The safe was exactly where Sarah had described. Behind the desk, hidden behind a painting of the Montana mountains. Elijah worked quickly. The combination lock was old rusted. He pressed his ear against the metal, listening for the click of tumblers falling into place. 1, 2, 3. The safe opened. Inside were stacks of papers, ledgers, certificates. Elijah grabbed everything he could carry, stuffing documents into his saddlebag. Then he saw it. A letter, addressed to Daniel Garrett from someone named William Hayes. Dated 1878. Elijah unfolded it and read by the dim light filtering through the window. "Daniel, I've completed the research you requested. Elijah Callahan married Anna Whitmore in 1867. Her sister Lillian married Thomas Bennett in 1874. They have one daughter, Grace, born 1875. If Callahan dies without heirs, his property reverts to the county under Section 412. However, if the sister's child establishes legal residence with Callahan, his claim becomes protected. Recommend eliminating this possibility before it occurs." Elijah's blood turned to ice. Cole had known about Grace for years. Had been planning this since before Lillian even got sick. He'd murdered Lillian to isolate Grace, to make her vulnerable, to use her as a weapon against Elijah. A sound behind him. The click of a hammer being pulled back. "Don't move, Callahan." Elijah froze. "Drop the papers, slowly." He let the documents fall to the floor. "Turn around." He turned. Marcus Cole stood in the doorway, a revolver aimed at Elijah's chest. Behind him, 2 armed men blocked any escape. "I knew you'd come," Cole said, his smile gleaming in the darkness. "Sarah Miller was very cooperative, after I threatened to burn her children alive." "You're a monster." "I'm a survivor." Cole stepped closer. "Just like you. We're not so different, you and I. I never murdered innocent women and children." "No, you just murdered my brother." Cole's voice cracked with 16 years of hatred. "Samuel was all I had. Our parents were dead. Our home was gone. He raised me, protected me, and you put a bullet in his chest and threw him off a cliff. He was a killer. He chose his path. He was my family." Cole's composure shattered. The mask fell away, revealing the broken boy underneath. "And you took him from me. So I'm going to take everything from you. Your land, your horses, your precious little Grace. You touch her and I'll..." You'll what? Cole laughed bitterly. You're done, Callahan. Breaking into a county building, stealing official documents. That's prison time. Maybe worse. He raised his revolver. Or maybe I just end it here. Claim you attacked me. Self-defense. No one would question it. Elijah's mind raced. He was unarmed, outnumbered, trapped. But the Hawk had been in worse situations. Before you kill me, Elijah said slowly, answer one question. Cole hesitated. What? Lillian. Did she suffer? Something flickered in Cole's eyes. Pride, maybe, or cruelty. She coughed blood for 3 months. Arsenic does that. Slow. Painful. His smile returned. She knew it was coming. Knew there was nothing she could do. The only thing she managed was to put that brat on a train before she died. You poisoned her. I removed an obstacle, just like I removed your wife. The words hit Elijah like a physical blow. Anna died of typhoid. Did she? Cole's smile widened. Funny thing about typhoid, the symptoms are very similar to certain poisons, especially if no one thinks to look for them. The world seemed to tilt. 4 years of grief. 4 years of blaming himself for not being there. And all along it had been murder. You killed Anna. I killed your future. Cole raised the revolver, aiming between Elijah's eyes. And now I'm going to finish the job. A shot rang out, but it didn't come from Cole's gun. Cole staggered, clutching his shoulder. Blood seeped between his fingers. What? Another shot. One of Cole's men fell. Chaos erupted. Elijah dove for cover as gunfire exploded around him. He heard shouts, running footsteps, the crash of breaking glass. Then a familiar voice. Elijah, this way! Sheriff Dawson appeared in the doorway, rifle in hand. Behind him, Thomas Hartwell and 3 other men from town, all armed. Move now! Elijah grabbed the scattered documents and ran. They burst out of the building into the night air. More shots followed them, but Dawson's men provided covering fire. How did you know? Elijah gasped as they mounted their horses. Clara figured something was wrong when you didn't come back by 2. She woke me up. Dawson spurred his horse forward. Good thing she did. They rode hard through the darkness, leaving Silver Creek behind. Cole's voice echoed after them, twisted with rage. This isn't over, Callahan. I'll burn everything you love. The rest was lost to the wind. They didn't stop until they reached Hartwell's ranch, 5 miles from town. Inside, Elijah spread the stolen documents across the kitchen table. His hands were shaking, not from fear, from rage. He killed them, Elijah said quietly. Anna, Lillian. He murdered them both. What? Clara had been waiting at Hartwell's. Her face went pale. That's not possible. Anna died of typhoid. The doctor confirmed it. The doctor didn't know to look for poison. Elijah showed her the letter. Cole's been planning this for years. He killed Lillian to isolate Grace. He killed Anna to isolate me. Clara read the letter. Her hands began to tremble. Oh God, Elijah, all this time. He confessed, tonight, bragged about it. Elijah's voice was like ice. He's going to pay for what he's done, all of it. How? Dawson asked. He's wounded, but he's not dead, and he's still got men, still got the judge in his pocket. Not anymore. Elijah held up another document. A ledger page showing payments to Judge Harrison. This proves the judge has been taking bribes. His rulings are invalid. Every land seizure Cole made can be overturned. That's incredible. But Cole won't just accept defeat. He'll come after you, after Grace. Let him come. Elijah's eyes were hard. I'm done running, done hiding. He wants the Hawk, he's going to get him. They rode back to Elijah's ranch at dawn. The house was quiet when they arrived. Too quiet. Elijah dismounted before his horse had fully stopped running for the front door. It was open. "Grace Clara." No answer. He burst inside, heart pounding. The main room was in shambles, furniture overturned, broken dishes on the floor, signs of a struggle. No, 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 no. He ran to Grace's room. Empty. On the bed, pinned to her pillow, was a note. "You took my brother. Now I'll take what matters most to you. Bring the documents to Devil's Ridge. Midnight. Come alone, or the girl dies." Elijah's hands crushed the paper. Behind him, Dawson and Hartwell arrived, taking in the destruction. "They have her," Elijah said, his voice barely recognizable. "Cole has Grace." "Elijah." "He wants me to come alone, to exchange the documents for her life." "It's a trap," Dawson said. "He'll kill you both the moment he has what he wants." "I know." "Then what are you going to do?" Elijah turned to face them. In his eyes was something they hadn't seen before. Something cold and ancient and utterly without mercy. "I'm going to get my daughter back, and then I'm going to kill Daniel Garrett." "You can't go alone," Hartwell protested. "It's suicide." "He said come alone. If he sees anyone else, he'll hurt her." Elijah moved to the trunk in his bedroom, pulled out the twin Colts he'd sworn never to use again. Strapped on the gun belt. "But that doesn't mean you can't follow, at a distance. Be there when I need you." Dawson nodded slowly. "We'll be there, all of us. Give me 30 minutes with him. If I'm not out by then, come in shooting. And Grace." Elijah checked his revolvers, loaded, ready. "Grace is the only thing that matters. If something happens to me, you get her out, no matter what." Clara appeared in the doorway. Her face was tear-streaked but determined. "They knocked me unconscious. Took her while I was on the floor." Her voice broke. "I'm sorry, Elijah. I tried to stop them. This isn't your fault. Let me come with you, please. She's my family too." Elijah crossed to her, put his hands on her shoulders. "I need you here. Safe. Grace is going to need someone when this is over. Someone who loves her." Clara's tears fell freely now. "Bring her home, Elijah. Promise me." "I promise." He walked out into the cold morning air, mounted his horse, and rode toward Devil's Ridge, toward the place where the hawk had died 16 years ago. Tonight, the hawk would rise again. The ride to Devil's Ridge took 3 hours. Elijah knew this territory. Every rock, every trail, every shadow. He'd hunted Samuel Garrett through these same mountains 16 years ago, had ended the outlaw's life on that same cliff edge. Now he was returning to face the brother. The ridge came into view as the sun began to set. A flat expanse of rock overlooking a canyon 500 feet deep. The same canyon Samuel Garrett had fallen into all those years ago. Cole was waiting. He stood near the cliff edge, Grace held in front of him like a shield. A knife gleamed at her throat. Behind him, 6 armed men spread out across the ridge. "You came," Cole called as Elijah dismounted. "I wasn't sure you would." "Let her go, Daniel." "Daniel." Cole laughed bitterly. "No one's called me that in 16 years. I like it. It reminds me of who I used to be, before you destroyed my life." Elijah walked forward slowly, hands visible. "She's a child. She has nothing to do with what happened between us." "She has everything to do with it." Cole pressed the knife closer to Grace's throat. She whimpered but didn't cry out. "You took my family. Now I'm taking yours. You want revenge, fine. Take it on me, not her." "Oh, I will. But first I want you to watch." Cole's eyes gleamed with madness. "I want you to feel what I felt when I saw my brother's body at the bottom of that canyon, when I had to bury him with my own hands." "Uncle Elijah." Grace's voice was small but steady. "I'm not scared." "I know, little one. I know." "She's brave," Cole admitted. "Just like her mother. Lillian didn't cry either, not even at the end." How much poison did it take? Elijah's voice was deadly calm. To kill a woman who never did you any harm. 3 months of small doses, in her medicine. She never suspected. Cole smiled. Neither did your wife. Anna was easier. Just a few weeks. She was already weak from that winter fever. Grace's eyes widened. You killed Aunt Anna too? I killed everyone the Hawk ever loved. And I'm not done yet. Elijah's hand moved toward his holster. Don't. Cole pressed the knife harder. A thin line of blood appeared on Grace's neck. Drop your guns, both of them. Kick them away. Elijah hesitated. Do it, or I swear I'll cut her throat right here. Slowly, Elijah unbuckled his gun belt, let it fall to the ground, kicked it away. The documents, too. Everything you took from my office. Elijah pulled the papers from his coat, tossed them at Cole's feet. Good. Good. Cole relaxed slightly. Now we can talk. What do you want, Daniel? You've already won. You have the documents. You have me unarmed. What else is there? I want you to admit it. Cole's voice cracked with emotion. I want you to admit that killing Samuel was wrong. That you destroyed an innocent boy's life for bounty money. Your brother murdered 17 people. Men, women, children. He burned families alive in their homes. He was protecting me, building a future for us. He was a monster, and you've become the same thing. Cole's face twisted with rage. He shoved Grace aside and lunged at Elijah, knife flashing. Elijah was ready. He caught Cole's wrist twisted, and the knife flew into the darkness. They grappled fists, flying two men locked in 16 years of hatred. Cole was younger, faster. But Elijah was fighting for something more than revenge. He was fighting for his family. A blow caught Elijah in the ribs. Another split his lip. He staggered backward toward the cliff edge. This is where it ends. Callahan, Cole screamed. The same place Samuel died. The same fall. He charged. Elijah sidestepped at the last moment. His hand shot out, grabbing Cole's collar. For one eternal second they teetered on the edge. Let me go, Cole screamed. Is that what you want? Elijah's voice was ice. To join your brother. You murdered him. I stopped a killer, just like I'm stopping you. Elijah pulled Cole back from the edge, throwing him to the ground. But I'm not going to kill you, Daniel. You're going to stand trial. Face justice. Everyone is going to know what you've done. No! Cole scrambled backward. No, I won't. I can't. Uncle Elijah. Grace's scream came too late. One of Cole's men had circled around. His rifle was aimed at Elijah's back. The shot rang out. But it wasn't Elijah who fell. Sheriff Dawson emerged from the darkness, his rifle smoking. The gunman collapsed. Now! Dawson shouted. Hartwell and the others burst from cover surrounding Cole's remaining men. Shots were fired. Men fell. Within moments, it was over. Elijah stood over Cole, breathing hard. It's finished, Daniel. You've lost. Cole stared up at him, eyes empty of everything except despair. Then kill me. End it. No. Elijah turned away. You're going to live. You're going to remember every day what you've done. And when they hang you, the whole territory will know that the Hawk doesn't murder in cold blood. Not even men who deserve it. Grace ran to him, throwing her arms around his waist. You came for me. I'll always come for you. Elijah held her tight, feeling her heart beat against his. Always. Dawson approached, handcuffs in hand. Daniel Garrett, you're under arrest for murder, fraud, and kidnapping. You have the right to remain silent, but I doubt you will. As Dawson led Cole away, Grace looked up at Elijah. Is it really over? Elijah watched his enemy disappear into the darkness. The man who had taken everything from him, who had murdered his wife, his sister-in-law, who had tried to destroy the last good thing in his life. "Yes, little one, it's over." Grace hugged him tighter. "Can we go home now?" Home. The word had never meant so much. Yes, we can go home. The ride back to Silver Creek took until dawn. Grace fell asleep against Elijah's chest, exhausted from the terror of the night. He held her with one arm, guiding his horse with the other, feeling her small heartbeat against his ribs. She was safe. That was all that mattered. Dawson rode ahead with Cole bound and gagged in a wagon. The other prisoners followed, guarded by Hartwell and his men. A procession of justice finally served. Clara was waiting on the porch when they arrived. She ran to meet them, tears streaming down her face. "Grace, oh, thank God, thank God." Elijah lowered the sleeping child into Clara's arms. "She's not hurt, just tired." "And you?" Clara's eyes scanned his face, taking in the cuts and bruises. "You look like you fought a bear." "Something like that." Clara carried Grace inside while Elijah dismounted. His body ached in places he'd forgotten existed. 58 years old, and he'd just fought a man half his age on a cliff edge in the middle of the night. The hawk was definitely getting too old for this. "Elijah." Dawson approached, his expression grave. "We need to talk about what happens next." "Later. Let me get Grace settled first." "It can't wait." Dawson lowered his voice. "Cole's men are talking. One of them is willing to testify in exchange for leniency. He says Cole kept records of everything, every bribe, every murder, every piece of land he stole. We already have the documents. Not all of them. There's more, hidden somewhere else." Dawson glanced toward the wagon where Cole sat silent and seething. "He won't tell us where, but his man says it's enough to bring down half the territorial government." Elijah absorbed this. "You think Cole had help beyond the judge?" "I think this goes higher than we realized. Railroad money, political connections. Cole was just the instrument." Dawson's jaw tightened. "If we don't find those records, someone else will, and they'll bury them, along with anyone who knows they exist. Then we find them first." "How Cole's not talking?" Elijah looked toward the house where Clara was tending to Grace. "Let me try." Cole was being held in the back of the wagon, hands bound, mouth finally ungagged. His shoulder wound had been crudely bandaged, but blood still seeped through the cloth. He looked up as Elijah approached. Something like amusement flickered in his eyes. "Come to gloat, Hawk. Come to offer you a choice." "What choice? I'm already dead. The moment that rope goes around my neck, everything ends." "Not everything." Elijah leaned against the wagon's edge. "You kept records, evidence against the people who helped you. Where is it?" Cole laughed, a hollow, broken sound. "Why would I tell you? Because you're going to hang either way, but how you're remembered, that's still in your hands." "Remembered?" Cole spat. "As what? The man who failed to avenge his brother, the man who let the hawk win again. As the man who exposed the corruption that let all this happen." Elijah's voice softened. "You were a boy when Samuel died, 15 years old, alone, afraid. I took your brother from you and you spent 16 years planning revenge. I understand that." "You understand nothing." "I understand loss. I understand rage. I understand wanting to destroy the thing that destroyed you." Elijah met Cole's eyes. "But the men who funded your scheme, the politicians who looked the other way, they used you, Daniel, used your grief, your hatred. They're going to walk free while you swing from a rope." Something shifted in Cole's expression, a crack in the armor of hatred. "They promised me," he whispered. "Promised that once you were destroyed, I'd have everything. Land, power, respect. And instead, I'm here, in a wagon, going to my death." Cole's voice cracked. "Samuel would be ashamed of me. Then make it right. Tell me where the records are." Cole was silent for a long moment. Then he said, "The old mill, 3 miles east of town. There's a cellar, a lockbox hidden under the floorboards." "Why should I believe you?" "Because I'm tired, Callahan." Cole's eyes closed. 16 years of hate, 16 years of planning. And in the end, what did it get me? A bullet wound and a noose. He laughed bitterly. "You were right. My brother was a monster, and I became one trying to avenge him." Elijah straightened. "If you're lying—" "I'm not. The lockbox is there. Everything you need to bring them all down." Cole opened his eyes. "Just promise me one thing." "What?" "Tell Grace I'm sorry. For what I did to her mother. For what I tried to do to her." His voice broke. "She looks like Lillian, you know. Same eyes, same stubborn chin. When I held that knife to her throat, all I could see was her mother's face." Elijah said nothing. "I didn't want to become this," Cole continued. "When Samuel died, I just wanted justice. But somewhere along the way, justice turned into something else. Something ugly." He looked at Elijah. "Don't let her become like me. Don't let hate consume her the way it consumed me." "She won't." "How can you be sure?" "Because she has something you never did." Elijah turned away. "She has family." The old mill was exactly where Cole had said. Elijah rode out with Dawson and 2 deputies, leaving Hartwell to guard the prisoners. The building was abandoned, rotting, half-collapsed from years of neglect. The cellar was hidden beneath a trapdoor in the corner. Elijah descended first, lantern in hand. The space was small, damp, and smelled of mold and decay. But in the far corner, exactly as Cole had described, a loose floorboard concealed a metal lockbox. Inside were dozens of documents, letters, ledgers, contracts, names that made Dawson whistle low. Good God! The territorial governor, 3 state senators, the railroad commissioner. Dawson flipped through the pages. Cole wasn't just working for the railroad. He was working for half the territorial government. "Can we use this? We can destroy them with this." Dawson's eyes gleamed. "Every land seizure, every bribe, every backroom deal. It's all here. Dates, amounts, signatures. Then let's make sure the right people see it." They returned to town to find a crowd gathered in the square. Word had spread about Cole's arrest, about the documents, about the corruption that had been festering at the heart of their community for years. People were angry, frightened, demanding answers. Elijah pushed through the crowd to find Clara waiting on the steps of the general store. "Grace is inside," Clara said quickly. "Mrs. Hobbs is watching her. She's fine." "Good." "Elijah." Clara grabbed his arm. "People are talking. They want to know what happens next. They're scared." They should be. What Cole did, it wasn't just him. It was a whole system designed to steal from people like us, widows, orphans, anyone without power. "Can you stop it?" "I can try." He climbed the steps, turning to face the crowd. 50, maybe 60 people. Faces he'd known for years. Neighbors, friends, fellow ranchers who'd weathered hard times together. "You all know me," Elijah began. "You know what I was, what I did, the man they called the Hawk." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. "I thought that man was dead, buried with the past. But last night he came back, because someone threatened my family, threatened the little girl I took in from a train depot, the girl someone labeled no one's child." He held up the documents from the lockbox. "Marcus Cole isn't just a corrupt county registrar. He's Daniel Garrett, brother of Samuel Garrett, the last member of the gang I brought to justice 16 years ago. He murdered my wife. He murdered his own cousin by marriage, Grace's mother. He tried to murder Grace, and he's been stealing your land for years." Angry shouts erupted from the crowd. "But he didn't do it alone." Elijah's voice cut through the noise. "He had help. Powerful help. Men in Cheyenne. Men in Helena. Men who saw us as nothing more than obstacles to their railroad profits. He let that sink in. I have evidence, names, dates, proof of every crime they committed. And I'm going to make sure a real judge sees it. A judge who can't be bought. Who? Someone called out. Judge Harrison was in Cole's pocket. Then we go over his head. To the Territorial Supreme Court. To Washington if we have to. Elijah's eyes swept the crowd. This isn't just about my land. It's about all of us. Every family Cole targeted, every homestead he stole, every life he destroyed. Thomas Hartwell stepped forward. I'll testify. My neighbor lost everything because of Cole. I saw it happen. So will I. Martha Jennings emerged from the crowd, old and frail but unbowed. He burned my home, took my land, left me with nothing. One by one, others joined. 5, 10, 20. Voices rising, names being called, stories being told. Dawson stepped up beside Elijah. I'll wire the territorial marshal today. Request an emergency investigation. With this evidence and these witnesses, we can bring down everyone involved. Clara squeezed Elijah's hand. You did it. Not yet, but we've started. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. Territorial marshals arrived from Helena. They took custody of Cole and his men, reviewed the evidence, interviewed witnesses. The documents from the lockbox proved everything Elijah had claimed and more. Judge Harrison was arrested at his home, still in his nightclothes. 3 territorial senators resigned in disgrace. The railroad commissioner fled to Canada, but was captured at the border. And through it all, Elijah focused on what mattered most. Grace. Her nightmares came every night at first, screaming awake, crying for her mother, reliving the terror of Cole's knife at her throat. Elijah would sit with her until she fell back asleep, singing Anna's lullaby, the one Grace had hummed on that first night. Will the bad man come back? She asked one evening, clutching her pillow. No, he's locked away. He can't hurt you anymore. But there might be other bad men, someday. There might be. Elijah pulled her quilt tighter. But I'll be here. I'll always protect you. Promise. Promise. Slowly, the nightmares faded. Grace began to smile again, to laugh, to ask endless questions about horses and ranching and the stars. She was healing. They both were. The trial came in early March. The Territorial Supreme Court sent a special judge, a man named William Crawford, with a reputation for honesty that bordered on legendary. He arrived in Silver Creek with 2 federal marshals and a mandate to clean house. Elijah testified for 3 hours. He told the court everything, his history as the Hawk, his pursuit of Samuel Garrett, the 16 years of peace that followed, Anna's death, Lillian's death, Grace's arrival. When he finished, Judge Crawford studied him with keen eyes. Mr. Callahan, you've admitted to killing men, to taking the law into your own hands. I killed outlaws who'd murdered innocent people. Men with bounties on their heads placed there by courts of law. And Daniel Garrett. You had him at your mercy on Devil's Ridge. Why didn't you kill him? Elijah glanced at Grace sitting in the front row between Clara and Hartwell. Because killing him would have made me what he said I was. A murderer. A man no better than his brother. He looked back at the judge. I didn't want my daughter to see that. Didn't want her to grow up knowing her father chose revenge over justice. Your daughter. Crawford leaned forward. The girl you found at the train depot, the one labeled no one's child. Her name is Grace. Grace Callahan, if the law will recognize it. We'll get to that. First, tell me about Cole's confession. Elijah recounted Cole's words on Devil's Ridge. The admission of poisoning Anna and Lillian. The 16 years of planning. The network of corruption that had enabled everything. When he finished, the courtroom was silent. Judge Crawford turned to Cole, who sat shackled in the defendant's chair. Daniel Garrett, you've heard the testimony against you. Do you wish to respond? Cole raised his head. His face was pale, hollowed out by weeks in custody, but his eyes still burned. "I'm guilty," he said quietly. "Of everything. The murders, the fraud, the land seizures, all of it." Murmurs swept through the courtroom. "I spent 16 years planning revenge against the man who killed my brother. I thought if I destroyed him, if I took everything he loved, it would fill the hole Samuel's death left in me." Cole's voice cracked. "It didn't. It just made the hole bigger." He looked at Elijah. "Your wife, Anna. She was kind to me once, when I first came to Montana before I knew who you were. She gave me food when I was hungry, smiled at me when everyone else looked through me like I wasn't there." Tears streamed down his face. "And I killed her for it, because she loved you, because destroying her would hurt you." Grace made a small sound. Clara put an arm around her. "I'm not asking for mercy," Cole continued. "I don't deserve it, but I'm asking you to remember that hate is a poison. It killed my brother. It killed me. Don't let it kill anyone else." Judge Crawford was quiet for a long moment. "Daniel Garrett, this court finds you guilty of murder, conspiracy, fraud, and kidnapping. You are sentenced to hang by the neck until dead. May God have mercy on your soul." Cole nodded once. "Thank you, Your Honor." As the marshals led him away, he looked back at Elijah. "Take care of her, the girl. She deserves better than what life has given her so far." Elijah said nothing, but he nodded. It was the last time they ever spoke. After the sentencing, Judge Crawford called Elijah and Grace forward. "There's one more matter to address," Crawford said. "The status of Grace Bennett." Grace clutched Elijah's hand, her small fingers trembling. "I've reviewed the evidence of her parentage. Her mother, Lillian Bennett, was the sister of Anna Callahan. That makes Grace the legal niece of Mr. Callahan by marriage." "Yes, sir." "However, territorial law requires more than blood relation for full family recognition. It requires demonstrated continuity, participation in family trade." Crawford studied them both. "I understand there was supposed to be a branding ceremony, one that was blocked by the late Judge Harrison's fraudulent orders. That's correct? Then I'm ordering it to take place, tomorrow, here in Silver Creek." Crawford's stern face softened slightly. "With proper witnesses and full legal recognition." Grace looked up at Elijah, hope blazing in her gray eyes. "We get to do it for real." "For real." The branding ceremony took place at noon the next day. Half the town turned out. Ranchers, merchants, families who'd been robbed by Cole's schemes. They gathered around Elijah's corral, watching as Grace prepared to make her mark. The branding iron was hot, glowing orange in the forge. The EC star design stood out clearly. Elijah Callahan's family mark. Grace pulled on her leather gloves. Her face was set with determination. "Remember what I taught you," Elijah said quietly. "Steady hands. Count to 3. Lift clean." "I remember." The young colt was secured to the branding post. It shifted nervously, sensing something important was about to happen. Grace approached iron in hand. The weight was challenging, but she didn't waver. She pressed the iron to the colt's flank. "EC Star," she called out, her voice clear and strong. "This is my family's mark." 1, 2, 3. She lifted the iron. The brand was perfect. Clean lines, clear design. Unmistakably the Callahan mark. The crowd erupted in cheers. Judge Crawford stepped forward, document in hand. "Let the record show that Grace Bennett has participated in her family's trade, before witnesses, with skill and determination." He signed the paper with a flourish. "By the power vested in me by the territory of Montana, I hereby recognize Grace Bennett as Grace Callahan, legal daughter and heir of Elijah Callahan." Clara was crying. Hartwell was beaming. Even Dawson looked suspiciously misty-eyed. Grace threw her arms around Elijah's waist. "I'm really yours now, forever." "Forever," Elijah confirmed, his voice rough with emotion. "You're my daughter Grace, legally, officially, in every way that matters. Can we tell Mama and Aunt Anna? Can we visit their graves and tell them? Yes, we'll go today. They rode out to the small cemetery on the hill overlooking the ranch. 2 graves side by side. Anna Callahan, Lillian Bennett. Sisters reunited in death. Grace knelt between them, placing wildflowers she'd gathered on each mound. "I'm Grace Callahan now," she told the silent stones. "Uncle Elijah adopted me. It's official." She traced the letters of her mother's name. "I miss you, Mama, every day. But I'm not alone anymore. I have family." She moved to Anna's grave. "I wish I could have met you, Aunt Anna. Uncle Elijah talks about you all the time. He says you had the prettiest smile in Montana. He says I have your eyes." Grace touched the headstone gently. "Thank you for sending him to find me. I know it was you. Somehow." Elijah stood back watching. He thought of Anna, of the life they'd built together, of the love that had transformed a bounty hunter into a rancher, a killer into a husband. She'd saved him once, on a frozen mountain pass bleeding and alone. Now, through Grace, she'd saved him again. "Thank you," he whispered to the wind. "Both of you." The breeze stirred, carrying the scent of wildflowers and fresh earth. For just a moment, Elijah could swear he heard Anna's laugh. Then Grace was beside him, taking his hand. "Let's go home, Papa." Papa. The word hit him like lightning. "What did you call me?" Grace looked up, sudden uncertainty in her eyes. "Is that okay? I know Uncle Elijah is what I've been calling you, but now that it's official, I thought maybe—" She trailed off. "I can keep calling you Uncle if you want." Elijah knelt down, cupping her face in his weathered hands. "Papa is perfect," he said, his voice breaking. "Papa is exactly right." Grace smiled, that brilliant transforming smile that chased away every shadow. "Then let's go home, Papa. I'm hungry." Elijah laughed, a real laugh, the first one in years. "Then let's go home." They mounted up together, Grace sitting in front of Elijah on his horse. As they rode toward the ranch, toward the life that waited for them, Grace began to hum Anna's lullaby. The melody drifted across the Montana hills, carried by the wind to places beyond seeing. And somewhere, somehow, Elijah knew Anna was listening. The weeks after the trial brought a fragile peace to Silver Creek. Daniel Garrett was hanged on a Tuesday morning, witnessed by the families he'd wronged. Elijah didn't attend. Neither did Grace. Some endings didn't need to be seen. Instead, they spent that morning planting flowers on Anna's grave. Lavender, her favorite. "Will the lavender grow here?" Grace asked, patting dirt around the small seedlings. "It'll take time, but by summer, this whole hillside will smell like her." Like home. Yes, like home. The stolen lands were returned to their rightful owners. Martha Jennings got her property back, along with compensation from the railroad company. Thomas Hartwell received a commendation from the territorial governor. Sheriff Dawson was promoted to territorial marshal, though he insisted on staying in Silver Creek. "Someone's got to keep an eye on you, Callahan," he said with a rare smile. "Lord knows you attract trouble like honey attracts bears." Clara moved into the guest cabin on Elijah's property. She claimed it was to help with Grace's education, but Elijah suspected she simply didn't want to be alone anymore. None of them did. Spring came early that year. The snow melted. The creeks ran full. New calves were born, and Grace was there for every birth, holding lanterns through long nights, learning to guide new life into the world. "This one's stuck." She called one midnight, her small hands steady despite the urgency. "Papa, it's not coming out right." Elijah moved quickly, adjusting the calf's position. Together they pulled. The calf slid free, wet and gasping. "Is it alive?" Grace whispered. The calf shuddered, took its first breath, let out a weak cry. "She's alive, thanks to you." Grace beamed, exhaustion forgotten. "Can I name her? What do you want to call her?" "Anna, after Aunt Anna." Elijah's throat tightened. "Anna it is." Summer brought changes none of them expected. Clara announced she was selling the boarding house in town. "Too many memories," she said. "Too many ghosts. I'd rather be here helping you two troublemakers." "You sure about that?" Elijah asked. "Ranch life isn't easy. Neither was running a boarding house alone for 15 years. Clara's eyes sparkled. "At least here I have company." Grace was delighted. She'd grown to love Clara like a second mother, seeking her out for conversations about things she was too embarrassed to ask Elijah. "Papa doesn't understand about girl things," Grace confided one evening. "He tries, but he gets all red and changes the subject." Clara laughed. "Men are like that, even the brave ones. Was Papa always brave? Always, even when he was scared." Clara tucked a strand of hair behind Grace's ear. "The bravest people aren't the ones without fear. They're the ones who feel afraid and do the right thing anyway. That's what Mama used to say. Your Mama was a wise woman." The anniversary of Anna's death fell in August. Elijah woke before dawn, restless with memories. He found Grace already at the kitchen table, Anna's lullaby book open in front of her. "I couldn't sleep either," she said quietly. "I keep thinking about her, about all of them. All of them. Aunt Anna, Mama, even the bad man's brother." Grace looked up, her gray eyes troubled. "Is it wrong to feel sad for him, Samuel Garrett? He was terrible, but he was still someone's family." Elijah sat down across from her. "It's not wrong, it's human. The bad man loved his brother. That's why he did all those terrible things. Because he loved someone and lost them." Grace traced the words on the page. "Love shouldn't make people do terrible things. It shouldn't. But sometimes grief twists love into something ugly, something unrecognizable. Is that what happened to you when Aunt Anna died?" The question cut deep. Elijah had asked himself the same thing countless times over the past 4 years. "I was angry," he admitted. "So angry I could barely breathe. I wanted to hurt someone, anyone, make them pay for taking her from me. But you didn't." "No, because Anna wouldn't have wanted that. She loved the man I became after I stopped being the hawk. She wouldn't have wanted me to go back to killing." Grace was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I think that's why she sent me to you." "What do you mean?" "Mama said Aunt Anna was watching over us, that she'd make sure I found my way to family." Grace reached across the table and took his hand. "I think she knew you were sad. I think she knew you needed someone to love again. So she sent me." Elijah couldn't speak. The truth in Grace's words was too overwhelming. "I'm glad she did," Grace continued. "I'm glad I found you, Papa, even if it took a frozen train car and a mean note and almost dying. I'm glad too, little one, more than you'll ever know." They sat together in the pre-dawn darkness, holding hands, remembering the women who'd shaped their lives. When the sun rose, they rode out to the cemetery together. Clara joined them, carrying fresh flowers. The lavender had bloomed just as Elijah had promised. The hillside was carpeted with purple, the scent filling the morning air. "She would have loved this," Clara said softly, kneeling by Anna's grave. "She does love it," Grace corrected. "She's watching. I can feel her." Elijah placed his hand on the headstone, cool granite under his weathered palm. "I found her, Anna," he said quietly. "The girl you wanted me to find. Lillian's daughter, your niece." His voice cracked. "She's my daughter now, legally, officially, in every way that matters." The breeze stirred, carrying lavender perfume across the graves. "I wish you could have met her. She's got your stubbornness, your courage, your eyes." Elijah smiled through tears. "She calls me Papa now. Can you imagine the hawk someone's Papa?" Grace moved to stand beside him. She slipped her hand into his. "I told her Aunt Anna. I told her you sent me to him. I told her we're taking care of each other now." Grace's voice was strong. "We're going to be okay. Both of us. Because we're family." Clara wiped her eyes. "Anna would be so proud. Both of you." They stayed until the sun was high, sharing stories, sharing tears, sharing the love that connected them across the boundary between life and death. Fall brought Grace's 8th birthday. Elijah had never organized a birthday party before. The concept terrified him more than any outlaw ever had. "What do children even want for birthdays?" he asked Clara desperately. "Cake, games, friends, the usual." Grace doesn't have friends. She's been living on a ranch with 2 old people for most of a year. Clara smiled. Then it's time to change that. Invitations were sent to Hartwell's grandchildren, to the Dawsons' nephew, to families throughout Silver Creek who'd stood with them during the trial. Grace was bewildered when wagons began arriving on her birthday morning. "Who are all these people?" "Your guests." "My what?" "It's your birthday, Grace. You're supposed to have a party." Grace stared at him. "I've never had a birthday party before." "Then it's about time you did." The day was chaos. Children running everywhere, games Elijah didn't understand, more food than anyone could possibly eat. Laughter and noise, and the beautiful mayhem of community. Grace moved through it all with wide-eyed wonder, making friends she'd never had the chance to make before. By evening, she had a circle of girls her own age giggling together over secrets Elijah was probably better off not knowing. "Thank you, Papa," she said that night, exhausted but glowing. "This was the best day of my whole life." "You deserve it. You deserve every good thing. Even cake for breakfast tomorrow. Don't push your luck." Grace giggled and hugged him tight. "I love you, Papa." The words still knocked the breath out of him every time. "I love you too, Grace. More than anything." Winter returned with a vengeance. Elijah stood at the window one December morning watching snow blanket the Montana landscape. 1 year since he'd found Grace in that freight car. 1 year since his life had changed forever. "What are you thinking about?" Clara asked, joining him with 2 cups of coffee. "How different everything is. How different I am." "Different how?" "A year ago I was just existing, going through the motions, waiting to die so I could be with Anna again." He accepted the coffee, warming his hands on the cup. "Now I wake up every morning with purpose, with someone who needs me, someone who makes me want to be better than I am." Clara was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Anna would be happy, seeing you like this." "You think so?" "I know so. She always worried about you. Even when you were healthy and strong, she worried that the darkness from your past would catch up to you, that you'd lose yourself to it." "I almost did, after she died. But you didn't, and now you have Grace." Clara touched his arm gently. "Anna gave you that gift, Elijah. One last gift, the chance to love again." Grace burst through the door covered in snow, her face flushed with cold and excitement. "Papa! Come quick! One of the horses is acting strange." They rushed to the barn to find Starlight, their best mare, in labor. But something was wrong. The horse was thrashing, distressed, unable to deliver. "Get Dawson," Elijah ordered Clara. "Tell him we need help." "I'll stay," Grace said firmly. "I can help." "Grace, I've helped with calves. I know what to do. Please, Papa, let me stay." There was no time to argue. Elijah nodded. They worked together through the afternoon and into the evening. Grace held Starlight's head, singing softly to keep her calm. Elijah worked to reposition the foal, his hands cramping from the cold and effort. "It's not turning," he gasped. "The foal is stuck." "You can do it, Papa. You have to." Her faith in him was absolute, unshakable. Elijah reached deeper, found the foal's legs, and pulled with everything he had. The foal slid free, still, silent. "No," Grace whispered. "No, no, no." Elijah cleared the foal's nose and mouth, rubbed its chest. Nothing. "Come on," he muttered. "Come on, little one, fight." Still nothing. Grace pushed past him, kneeling beside the foal. She leaned close and breathed into its nose the way she'd seen him do with the calves. Once, twice, 3 times. The foal shuddered, gasped, let out a weak whinny. "He's alive!" Grace cried. "Papa, he's alive!" Elijah slumped back, exhausted but triumphant. "You saved him. You saved his life." "We did. Together." Grace looked up, tears streaming down her face. "That's what family does, right? Save each other." "That's exactly what family does." Spring came again. The ranch was thriving. New foals, new calves, new life everywhere Elijah looked. Grace had grown 3 inches over the winter. She was becoming less a child and more a young person, with opinions and dreams and a stubborn streak that reminded Elijah painfully of Anna. "I want to learn to read better," she announced one morning. "Clara says there's a school starting in town, real teachers from back east." "You want to go to school?" "I want to learn everything, math and writing and history and science." Her eyes shone. "Clara says education is the one thing nobody can ever take away from you." "Clara's a wise woman." "So can I go?" "Please, Papa." Elijah pretended to consider it, though he'd already made up his mind. "On one condition." "What?" "You keep helping with the ranch. School is important, but so is family. So is this land we've built together." "I promise. I'll do both. I'll be the best student and the best rancher in all of Montana." "That's my girl." The years passed the way years do. Slowly at first, then all at once. Grace went to school and excelled at everything she touched. She made friends, real friends, girls who visited the ranch on weekends and giggled over boys and dreams of the future. She grew into a young woman of remarkable beauty and strength. Her chestnut hair darkened to auburn. Her gray eyes, Anna's eyes, held a wisdom beyond her years. The star-shaped birthmark behind her ear became her signature, a reminder of where she came from and who she was. Clara stayed, becoming the grandmother Grace had never had. She taught Grace to sew, to cook, to navigate the complex waters of womanhood. She was there for the milestones. The first dance, the first heartbreak, the first triumph. And Elijah watched it all with wonder and gratitude. The hawk faded into legend. People still told stories about him in saloons, but they were just stories now. Tales of a bygone era. The man himself had been replaced by something better. A father, a rancher, a pillar of the community he'd once passed through as a stranger. On Grace's 18th birthday, Elijah gave her a gift. "What is it?" she asked, turning the small wooden box over in her hands. "Open it." There. Inside lay a silver locket, simple but elegant, engraved with intertwined roses. "This was Anna's," Elijah said quietly. "She wore it every day of our marriage. I wanted you to have it." Grace opened the locket. Inside were 2 tiny portraits, Anna on one side, Lillian on the other, sisters reunited in silver. "Oh, Papa." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "It's beautiful." "You're the bridge between them, Grace, the best of both your mothers. They'd be so proud of the woman you've become." "I had help." Grace threw her arms around him. The best help anyone could ask for. 20 years to the day since Elijah had found Grace in that frozen freight car, the lavender bloomed thick across the cemetery hillside. Elijah sat on the porch of the ranch house, watching the Montana landscape spread before him. His hair was white now, his face mapped with lines earned through decades of hard work and harder love. But his eyes were at peace. Grace rode up on Starlight's son, a magnificent stallion she'd raised from that difficult birth years ago. She dismounted and climbed the porch steps, settling into the chair beside him. "Beautiful day," she said. "That it is." "I have news, Papa." "Oh." Grace took a deep breath. "Thomas Hartwell's grandson, James. He asked me to marry him." Elijah felt his heart squeeze, joy and sorrow intertwined. "What did you say?" "I said yes." Grace's smile was radiant. "I love him, Papa, the way you loved Aunt Anna, the way Mama loved me. Then I'm happy for you. There's more. Grace took his weathered hand in hers. We want to stay here, on the ranch. James wants to learn the trade, to carry on what you built. You don't have to do that. You could go anywhere, do anything. I know. Grace squeezed his hand. But this is home, this land, these animals, these memories. Her eyes glistened. You made it home, Papa, for both of us. I don't want to leave. Elijah looked out at the ranch, at the barn and corral and the cabin Clara had lived in until her passing 2 winters ago, at the hillside where lavender bloomed purple over Anna's grave. Your Aunt Anna would be pleased, he said finally. She always wanted this place to be filled with family, with life, with love. It will be, I promise. The wedding took place on a June morning under skies so blue they hurt to look at. Half of Montana seemed to attend, ranchers and townsfolk and territorial officials, people who remembered the trial 20 years ago, people who'd heard the stories, people who simply loved Grace and wanted to see her happy. Elijah walked his daughter down the aisle, his steps slow but steady. Nervous, he whispered. Terrified, Grace admitted, but the good kind of terrified. That's exactly how I felt when I married your aunt. How do I look? Elijah stopped, turned to face her. His daughter, his miracle, the frozen child who'd become the center of his world. You look like a woman who knows exactly who she is, he said. Strong, brave, loved beyond measure. Grace's eyes filled with tears. I learned from the best. He kissed her forehead gently. Your mothers are watching, you know. All 3 of them. Anna, Lillian, Clara. I know. I can feel them. They completed the walk together, father and daughter, and Elijah placed Grace's hand in her husband's. Take care of her, he told James quietly. She's the greatest gift I've ever received. I will, sir. I promise. The years that followed were golden. Grace and James filled the ranch with children, 3 of them eventually, 2 girls and a boy. They named the oldest Anna, the middle child Lillian, and the boy Elijah, though everyone called him Eli. Elijah taught his grandchildren everything he knew: how to ride, how to rope, how to brand with steady hands and strong hearts, how to face fear and do the right thing anyway. On summer evenings, he'd gather them on the porch and tell stories about the hawk and his hunts, about the frozen child in the freight car, about the love that had saved them all. Tell us about the note again, Grandpa, little Anna would beg, the one that said, no one's child. It was pinned to your grandmother's chest, Elijah would say. 3 words meant to throw her away forever. But you didn't throw her away. No, I pulled her close and promised to keep her safe. And you did. And I did. The children would sigh with satisfaction, never tiring of the story, never losing their wonder at how their family had begun. On his 78th birthday, Elijah sat on the porch one last time. The autumn sun was warm on his face. The lavender had long since faded for the season, but its scent lingered in his memory. Grace sat beside him holding his hand, her own hair now streaked with silver. It was a good life, Elijah said quietly. The best. I never thought I'd have this. After everything I did, everything I was. He looked at his daughter. You gave me this Grace, you and Anna. The 2 of you saved me. We saved each other, Papa. That's what family does. Elijah smiled. That's what family does. He closed his eyes, feeling the warmth of the sun, the touch of his daughter's hand, the presence of everyone he'd loved, watching from somewhere beyond. And in that moment, peaceful and complete, Elijah Callahan finally rested. Grace stayed with him until sunset. When the first stars appeared, she leaned close and kissed his forehead. Thank you, Papa, she whispered, for finding me, for keeping me, for showing me what love really means." She stood looking out at the ranch they'd built together. The land, the animals, the home that had sheltered so many dreams. Her children were waiting inside with their own children now. 4 generations gathered under one roof. A family that had started with a frozen child and a broken man who'd found each other against all odds. Grace touched the locket at her throat, Anna and Lillian forever captured in silver. "I kept my promise," she told them silently. "I lived. I loved. I made it mean something." The wind stirred, carrying the scent of lavender from somewhere impossible. And Grace Callahan, who had once been called no one's child, smiled. She was somebody's child, somebody's daughter, somebody's mother and grandmother. She was loved. She was home. She was exactly where she was meant to be. And that was enough. That was everything.